My name is Lidya Radin, and I'm on a major campus in Long Island talking to pre-meds today, and I'm giving them important information that they need to know. This is vitally important, life-saving information that pre-meds need to know. Had someone told me when I was an honors graduate of Columbia University, if someone had shared this information with me when I was a pre-med, I would have accepted other offers to medical school and I'd be a doctor today. Instead, I'm being prosecuted by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office because I caught doctors and lawyers lying to steal money from me, an innocent student, and from taxpayers. So in response to my good faith efforts in reporting federal student loan fraud at my medical school, the Albert Einstein College of Medicine of Yeshiva University, that's the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, falsified financial records to steal money from me and from the federal and state taxpayers. And because I went down to Robert Morgenthal's office and made good faith efforts to report this fraud with another classmate named Mike Tyberg, in retaliation, doctors and lawyers at my medical school filed false criminal charges against me. Now this is page after page after page after page. You would think that I was a member of a criminal organization or some sort of criminal gang. I'm one person here, and look at this. These are hundreds of counts of false criminal charges that doctors and lawyers, acting in concert with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, with Robert Morgenthal's office, filed false criminal charges against me because I reported federal student loan fraud. I'm a whistleblower in a federal student loan program, and I'm simply trying to stop fraud against me and the taxpayers, and this is how a medical school retaliated. Look at this. These are hundreds of counts. They're completely unsubstantiated. They're in retaliation for me reporting federal student loan fraud. This is, I mean, if this isn't overreaching, I don't know what is. This is prosecutorial misconduct. Now, I sat down with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and made good faith efforts to show them that my medical school, for example, had committed fraud in federal student loan programs. And what they had done is run a scam where they falsely reported that I was a full-time student and I was eligible to borrow, but I was not. And so the reason I'm here on public TV today is twofold. First of all, I need your help in getting the word out to pre-meds and letting them know that the Albert Einstein College of Medicine falsifies records. They falsify financial records, medical records, educational records. If you saw my records, they're a joke. They're so falsified that I could do stand-up comedy with them. You do not want to attend this school. I wish someone had told me, because I was an honors graduate of Columbia University. I was accepted to 3 medical schools, and had I gone to another school, I would be a doctor today. Instead, I'm spending my time with ADA Spiro over at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, fighting page after page after page after page of false criminal charges. I'm selling everything I own to fight this. Why? Because I caught doctors and lawyers at my medical school lying to steal money from me and taxpayers. And this is an example, this is ridiculous. This is an example of one of the falsified records that I discovered. This is a promissory note where I filled out Part A, and then this promissory note was taken away from me, and outside of my presence, without my knowledge or consent, behind my back, my school falsely indicated that I was a full-time student when I was not. And they took money for classes that my medical school never provided to me. But the bottom line is, I'm fighting fraud at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. I'm a whistleblower. I'm trying to stop fraud against me. I'm trying to stop fraud against state and federal taxpayers, and I need your help. So what I'm doing is reaching out to the general public today, and I'm asking everybody out there to please help me, and please help another student victim. His name is Mike Tyberg. If you could call Mr. Vance's number, this is Cyrus Vance is the new Manhattan District Attorney, and his phone number is 212-335-9000. That's 212-335-9000. Can you out there in the general public make a single phone call? You can do it anonymously if you want, and say, I looked at Lidya Radin on public access TV, and she's trying to present examples of how her medical school lied to cheat taxpayers and students out of money. Doctors and lawyers at my medical school lied to steal money, and I'm going to show you another example. This is an example of a ledger sheet where my medical school said I was eligible to receive a TAP grant. That's a tuition assistance program grant. I was not eligible to receive this grant. My medical school defrauded the taxpayers. So in other words, ladies and gentlemen, you pay taxes, the school takes the money, and the student doesn't get the services. My medical school charged me $1,200 in my second year for a lab fee. I never took a lab my second year. So my medical school is creating fraud in federal, my medical school is creating false ledger sheets and charging me fees for classes I never took. I never took a lab fee in my second year. I wasn't eligible for a TAP grant, and this is state taxpayer money, tuition assistance program grant. This is a ledger sheet that was released by my medical school. They defrauded the state taxpayer. I also got a Pell Grant. This is federal taxpayer money. I was not eligible to receive a Pell Grant. Mike Tyberg came with me in summer of 2008 to the Manhattan District Attorney's office, to Robert Morgenthal's office, and we sat down with ADA Lenzer, that's Assistant District Attorney Jonathan Lenzer. And in good faith, we tried to report to Jonathan Lenzer that our school had falsified financial information. Now, I discovered this promissory note in June of 2005, and I'm going to take you through the criminal scheme. It's kind of pretty easy. I was called into my school's financial aid office, well, they call it the student finance office, and I filled out Part A of this promissory note, which is basically your name, your address, a couple references, and how much you want to borrow. So I only filled out Part A. Mr. Lloyd Greenberg, who was responsible for this, helped my school run a criminal scheme. And at every point here, when I was asking Mr. Lloyd Greenberg questions about my federal student loans and my obligations, he told me, oh, I don't answer those questions. My job is just to get you to sign the note. So the Albert Einstein College of Medicine bullies you into signing a promissory note. I filled out Part A, and then this promissory note was taken away from me. And again, outside of my presence, and without my knowledge or consent, Lloyd Greenberg, who's the authorized school official, filled out Part B. And Part B says that in box 21, I was a full-time student during 1995 to 1996. That's not true. I was not a full-time student. Mr. Lloyd Greenberg, as the authorized school official, lied. So the school got money. My academic program was canceled, so there were no classes for me to take ultimately. The school canceled my academic program in January of 1996, but they kept. I'm going to give you one example of how doctors and lawyers at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine lied to steal money from me. This is an example of my falsified promissory note. I was compelled to sue in federal court to try to get my records and correct them. Judge Patterson erroneously ruled against me in May of 2005. In June of 2005, I discovered this falsified promissory note. Notwithstanding, this gives me newly discovered evidence so I can amend my federal complaint. But I discovered this falsified promissory note, and I want to talk you through a little bit of the details of the scam, the criminal scheme that doctors and lawyers at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine are running. I was brought into Lloyd Greenberg's office, and I was asked to fill out Part A of this promissory note. And basically it's your name, address, phone number, 2 references. You sign it and date it, ask for some money. This is how much money you want to borrow. And then this promissory note was taken away from me, and I didn't see it again until years later. And behind my back, my medical school filled out Part B. Part B, and this was without my outside of my presence and without my knowledge or consent. Mr. Lloyd Greenberg filled out Part B. Mr. Lloyd Greenberg is the authorized school official, and what he did is he indicated that I was a full-time student and I was eligible to borrow. The fact is I was not a full-time student, and this is very easy for the prosecutor to see. In fact, the prosecutor knows that he knows irrefutably that he has federal student loan fraud based on one document and one sentence, and that document is this. Now, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has had this information since February 2nd. Today is now April 3rd, and so the prosecutor's office has had this information, and Judge Simpson has had this information for quite a while. And this is a memo that was released by my school, and it tells me, this is a memo from Michael J. Reichgott, he's a complaining witness against me, to me, that says, we discussed your curriculum plan and we agreed to the following. This is my curriculum plan for 1995 to 1996. And he tells me that I'm going to take 3 classes, I'm going to repeat 3 classes, and I'm going to, with the first year class, I'm going to repeat 3 first year classes, and then I'm going to take 2 more classes. So repeating 3 classes and taking 2 more classes for a total of 5 classes is not a full-time academic program. On its face, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office knows that I am not a full-time student, as is falsely indicated here, because full-time students at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine take more than 5 classes. How do I know? Because I have the original college bulletin, which I also gave the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. This is the first year curriculum, which shows that students take 12 to 14 classes. And also you can see, and I provided this to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, that the second year curriculum has more than 5 classes. So it's really simple for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office to know that a complaining witness against me has a retaliatory motive. I caught doctors and lawyers at my school lying. They lied to steal money from me in a federal student loan program. They falsely indicated that I was a full-time student. Full-time students at this school take more than 5 classes. And what's interesting about this memo is this was a curriculum plan that my dean presented to me. Ultimately, I never took infectious diseases or parasitology because my school canceled my program. So January of 1996, my school canceled my program. There were no classes for me to take, and I was not eligible for this loan at all. I think this is incredibly important information for me to share with pre-meds, and I wish somebody had told me. So what I'm asking for is for the general public to give a phone call to Mr. Vance's office and say, look, she's reporting federal student loan fraud. She was not eligible to borrow. The school took a lot of money, and she, as the student, did not get the services or the classes. She discovered another victim named Mike Tyberg, and if you could call Mr. Vance and say, our tax dollars should not be spent stealing money from students, and our tax dollars should not be spent stealing state and federal taxpayer-provided grants. We pay taxes. Those taxes go to the state, and the state creates these tuition assistance programs where they try to help students pay for their tuition. We pay money to the federal government. The federal government created the Pell Grant program. My school took these grants that I was not eligible to receive. They ran this scam on Mike Tyberg in summer of 2008. We went down to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, to Robert Morgenthal's office, and reported federal student loan fraud, and we got the bum's rush. It's very easy for the school to confirm that we're victims in the federal student loan program, that the school falsified financial information. The consequences to the school are huge. Fraud in federal student loan programs is not tolerated, so the Albert Einstein College of Medicine can lose its ability to administer these programs forever, and doctors and lawyers who lied to steal money from students can have their licenses to practice revoked. And you need to know who these doctors are, because Dr. David, Dr. Jimmy David, James David, practices in the Bronx. This is a psychiatrist who runs around. He defamed me, and he's a complaining witness against me. And he has a retaliatory motive. So what he did was, he's responsible for page after page after page, hundreds of counts of false criminal charges that were leveled at me, that were pressed against me in retaliation because my medical school lied to steal money. The 34th precinct refuses to protect me. They refuse to take my legitimate complaints. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office helps a major medical school lie to steal money from students. There's no polite way to say it here, but we have a criminal conspiracy that's being used to steal money from me, from Mike Tyberg, from state and federal taxpayers, and me and Mr. Tyberg identified a profile that will probably yield more victims. So if you know Michael J. Reichgott, he is an MD. He is a doctor who lies to steal money. If you know James Jimmy David, he's an MD. He's a doctor who lied to steal money from me. Todd Olson is a tenured anatomy professor. He sat on my promotions committee. Today, he is responsible for accurately reporting the number of classes that ultimately my medical school was responsible for providing to me, and he's responsible for federal student loan fraud. John Scarfone is Associate General Counsel. He's responsible for federal student loan fraud. John Scarfone is an attorney who knows better. Dan Rizal is a partner in the law firm Sive, Paget, and Rizal. He's responsible for federal student loan fraud. This is an example of the letters that I'm getting from the United States Department of Education. This is happening today. Not years ago. Today, I'm getting letters from the federal government that say, if you don't pay for classes that your medical school never provided to you, we're going to take all kinds of adverse action against you. And the adverse action against me is economic harm. I've already been harmed by the government. I've been illegally declared in default on a federal student loan I was not eligible to receive. So I have the black mark of a defaulted student loan on my credit reports for life. I cannot escape from this obligation by declaring bankruptcy. I can't get a job. I can't get an apartment. My credit reports will carry the black mark of a defaulted student loan for life, and my medical school refuses to correct this. They refuse to give me access to my complete unedited records, and they've refused to allow me to correct my records because I caught doctors and lawyers lying to steal money. And I would very much appreciate if you out there in the viewing audience could make a single phone call to help me and another student victim, and urge the Manhattan District Attorney's Office to work with us to identify other victims, because we believe there are other victims of federal student loan fraud out there that need your help. So please call Mr. Vance at 212-335-9000 and say, please work with Lidya Radin and Mike Tyberg and help them correct their records, help them get restitution and a refund, help them with criminal prosecution. The individuals responsible for these crimes deserve to be prosecuted. Criminal prosecution will stop this, and help them identify other victims who also need the help of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and stop persecuting the innocent victim of crimes, which is me. Thank you so much. If you can make a phone call, it would be a great help. So in conclusion, we're looking for new victims of federal student loan fraud at my school, the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, or at any school. If you've been victimized in the federal student loan program, you can contact us at crookeddoctors, that's one word, crookeddoctors@yahoo.com. You can also find more information that we've put on YouTube. You can look at our YouTube videos. The username is Crooked Doctors. Again, it's one word, Crooked Doctors. There are lots of supportive people who are coming forward and making phone calls and sending emails and letters, and I'd like to thank them. So if you'd like to come forward and report federal student loan fraud, you don't have to be afraid. There is a support network. I want to thank all the people in Manhattan, all the Tea Party people in Manhattan, all the Tea Party people in Nassau, all the Tea Party people in Suffolk who were very supportive, who made phone calls for us. I'd like to thank the elected officials in Manhattan. For example, City Councilman Rodriguez. His staff has been wonderful. He's been a stand-up guy. People who signed petitions in New York were very supportive. Individuals and groups came forward. Angel Audi Fred, who is Chief of Staff at City Councilman Rodriguez's office, is a wonderful support system, great stand-up guy. They're making phone calls. I want to thank all the elected officials who provided support, including Congressman Micah's office, everyone from Nassau, everyone from Suffolk, everyone from Manhattan. The Nassau County Civic Association has been instrumental in trying to put a stop to fraud. I want to thank all the political leaders and all the community leaders who helped me and who are trying to put a stop to federal student loan fraud and abuse of taxpayer money. And again, there were other individuals and groups who came forward. So if you happen to be victimized, please don't be afraid. Please call, contact us at our email address. Look at our videos. Please know that there's a support network of concerned individuals, responsible people who feel that students should not be victimized and they should not be paying for students to be persecuted, and instead feel that a whistleblower and a federal whistleblower like me deserves protection and not persecution. So you can feel free to come forward and know that there are people and organizations of good conscience who are fighting the good fight and will help you too. You can email us at crookeddoctors, that's one word, crookeddoctors@yahoo.com. We'll answer your questions. You can look at our YouTube videos. The username is Crooked Doctors, so that's one word. We have a support group that we're forming. We're getting a lot of support from wonderful elected officials. City Councilman Rodriguez has been very supportive. His Chief of Staff, Angel Audi Fred, has been very supportive. We've gotten a lot of support from the Nassau County Civic Association. Tea Party Democrats and Republicans, the Tea Party on both sides of the aisle in Nassau and Suffolk, they made phone calls. They provided support letters. We asked them for emails. So we wanted to thank them. If you're a victim out there, you can look at the information that we're putting out there on YouTube. You can send us an email. You can feel confident that we built a support network of elected officials. Congressman Micah, for example, has been an incredibly stand-up guy. We have attorneys at different kinds of volunteer attorneys at different associations that are helping us, and the Tea Party people have been wonderful. There are also people like Susan Ramos for PFLAG who provided emails. There are individuals and groups that are providing emails and support. So if you'd like to email us at crookeddoctors, that's one word, crookeddoctors@yahoo.com. If you'd like to see more information, we put out videos on YouTube that's username Crooked Doctors, one word. And we'd like to thank all the Tea Party people in Nassau and Suffolk who pick up the phone. They called Mr. Vance's office. They said, this is not right. We want to stop fraud at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. There are lots of people who are weighing in as individuals and groups who are trying to do the right thing. So if you happen to be a victim of any school, I was speaking at one public event, and there was a woman who came forward and said, not at my school, but in another school, she also had information about federal student loan fraud. Please contact us. There's a support network that's building of individuals and groups that want to make sure that these crimes do not go unaddressed, that students are not burdened with paying for services that were never provided for them, that they're not victimized. If you're outraged that your tax dollars are being spent like this, which the Tea Party people are outraged for misappropriation of funds, who are outraged that a federal whistleblower like me is being retaliated against and persecuted by the very people who are supposed to make sure this doesn't happen to students, then please give Mr. Vance's office a call and ask him to stop fraud at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine.